Covering Tennessee football and the quarterback competition this season has been so much like going back to your high school English lit class and your professor's like, what does a blue curtain mean? I don't know. I'm like, wait, let me go back to page 1 to make sure like I didn't miss any context clues. And I feel like that's the gymnastics I'm doing, trying to keep up with this quarterback competition and how it continues to evolve and change day to day, practice to practice. But now that practice is closed, I don't think Tennessee's going to be in any rush to name a day 1 starter. But I think they should be. I'm Paige Dower. This is the sports page on Full Disclosure. Yeah, so you can't take anything at face value. You have to use your context clues. You have to be asking yourself questions. And that could start with Joey Aguilar throwing a pick 6 in the first scrimmage. I mean, okay, I guess you could run with it, but like, who was on the offensive line? Who was the intended receiver? Obviously, we know who had the interception, but like a pick 6 is so much about like the entire like offense falling apart. Like the interception, maybe that's on Joey Aguilar, but the touchdown in return is not necessarily all on him. And where were they on the field when the pick 6 happened? And was it overthrown? Was the route run the wrong way? Like, and that's exactly what I hope I vocalize on the sports source. Like there's so much more that goes into what your eyes see in the first 5 minutes of camp and what goes into what your sources will tell you following a scrimmage. You hope that you hear a little bit more from Heupel following the second scrimmage, but we have to like dive in a little bit more. Let's go back to page 1. Let's, kind of like figure out who's really made the most progress, made the most or has been the most consistent. And I think since everybody has, George MacIntyre top of mind, let's start with him. Why not? I would agree. He has shown significant progress through fall camp alone, especially when you consider how he looked in the orange and white game, of course, throwing that beautiful touchdown to, I believe it was Rodarius Jackson. He had some targets to Travis Smith as well. He looked great in the orange and white game. Of course, it wasn't as a traditional scrimmage as it might have well been if the quarterback room was at full strength, but you kind of have to take things in stride. Then you get to fall camp, and he obviously, he's the tallest in the room, but he's the skinniest in the room. And a lot of that will eventually equate to longevity with his health in the regular season. The longevity of, how much and how often he can continue to throw the ball as hard as he is in fall camp. He probably has the tightest spiral. He's probably most accurate, and he probably has, the most power behind his throws. But how does that look at the end of practice? And just because he starts hot in the beginning of practice doesn't mean he's ends hot at the end of practice. But where he's shown a lot of signs is we could go to the last practice, and they're doing a lot of motion when they're throwing. They tried to do that back, I think it was the first week of practice, where they were trying to, simulate maybe a little bit more up tempo, and they were just going to go up, take the snap, kind of do a bootleg rollout, and try to throw the ball either just down the middle or across the field. And none of them looked very good in that drill before it was closed to practice. But for George MacIntyre, he probably has the highest ceiling, but he deserves the luxury of time to develop in this program. And for the most part, if I were in his position, I would want to probably redshirt, but I want to be considered to be somebody that is actually in competition, not just pseudo in a 3-man race. I think that's kind of how it is now, but he might even be making a real case for himself next season, the way that he has continued to practice like a pro, the way he's been consistent within his development, and the way that they all kind of help each other to continue to mature. But they don't, all 3 of them, as it sounds, don't have a true, or they're not true masters of the details when it comes to how they play. But for George MacIntyre, he just needs more time. And that's not to say that we won't see him at all this regular season, maybe in those non-conference games. I know ETSU will probably try to give Tennessee all they can handle, but maybe that'll give MacIntyre a chance, late in the fourth quarter to go get some valuable reps. But this has done nothing but expedite his growth within this program, being treated like he's actually in the quarterback competition versus as everything was status quo. He would just be like, oh, that's your third string guy. Just go get third string reps with your team. Everybody is splitting reps. And as much as Josh Heupel says, oh, we're not going to change how we split reps, it's not like you have a chance anyway, and that's where you have to read between the lines. You've got competition up and down the offensive line. You haven't figured out who your starting center is, who's your right guard. Maybe we can read between the lines, and maybe we'll say it's Sam Pendleton at right. I think a lot of people want him at center. You're riddled in injuries in the wide receiver room. Again, who was that intended target for Joey Aguilar? Even Miles Kitselman is in that, red or yellow jersey for what we've been able to see. So you've got some injury there. Your strongest room is your running back room. How involved are they in the passing game right now? And how is that developing? Of course, that's where you have your most depth. And kind of what I said in a quick recap yesterday, it's like that's where your confidence should be. And in the previous one with concerns for the wide receiver room, it was all about how 20% of all of the passing yardage will probably go to the other two position groups, the running back room and the wide receiver room. You can go listen to that. I want to get too much off on a tangent. But I think, yeah, George MacIntyre has the highest ceiling. He's not going to be your day one starter. I don't know if that would be necessarily fair to him anyway. It's not the first time, someone would have to go with a true freshman as your starting quarterback. It probably just isn't going to be George MacIntyre. Where it gets interesting is when it becomes maybe that two-man race, right? Like with Jake Merklinger. Maybe for bold takes, I truly would not be surprised if he got the nod. I don't know. I know Josh Heupel has said, like in the past, it's like, oh, we've seen this before with Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker. But I really think this season could honestly be more about how it was a couple of seasons ago at Alabama when it was Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. And it wasn't necessarily an injury that led to that quarterback change, especially in the postseason, and how the, freshman season or the sophomore season ended for Jalen, and just kind of how that battle continued to evolve. I think it'll be more resemblant of that than it is with somebody getting an injury and somebody having to come in. Like maybe Jake Merklinger gets the start, but then later down the road, like that veteran experience that Joey has might actually be more beneficial later down the season. And maybe that's where you see the quarterback change. If I can have bold takes, I do think if I'm being realistic, Joey Aguilar likely gets the start and likely probably holds on to it for the season. But if you're wanting to be risky, if you're wanting to take a chance, if you feel like at this point you've got nothing to lose, right? Like the quarterback situation is so unideal. It's not ideal at all. Take a chance. Why not? Like if you think Jake Merklinger's your future, maybe you start with him. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Again, he has put on incredible size. He still continues to look accurate. He probably, from what I can gather, is one of the more accurate or more consistent players in the quarterback competition and in the quarterback room. And he's shown some real good progress when it comes to, again, the zip that he has on the football, the tight spiral. We can go take a couple of drills, and it's tough again because, like, you don't want to take even those things at face value. Where like, oh, this one drill, this one snap, this one pass, oh, that looked so good. He's your guy. But when that's all you got, it's kind of hard to not do that. So when we go to those couple of moments, like Merklinger is just like ripping at this football that whoever the staffer is that's trying to get it bobbles it a little bit. And again, like, is that because he didn't have his hands where he was supposed to be, or is that because Merklinger has some real good power behind his catch or his throws? And it reminds me, actually, like I think it was back in week 2, maybe week 3, it all runs together, and George MacIntyre was trying to obviously throw a pass down the sideline. It was incomplete, and I was like, oh, let me stick my arm out and try to stop this. My arm was like so red the rest of the day. I was like, I won't do that again. So he has some good zip on his throws as well. It just depends on who has it more. But when we look at this season, like where I think I get that bold claim that it could be Merklinger who gets the start, it's because he has the most pressure on himself. He has the most experience in this system. You can go back to before the Nico situation happened, and he said, you have to prepare like you're the day one starter. He probably had a little bit of that mentality when Gaston Moore was here last season and, kind of following his lead. He certainly operated that way up until the orange and white game, no doubt. And then the couple of weeks or so that transpired after that, when you're looking for your next quarterback to just have a body in the room, he probably was, again, shifting his mindset to be like, this might be mine to lose. Like, it's Joey's to gain, but might be Jake's to lose. And again, this is just the sake of like entertaining, like hot takes. I do think there's a lot of validity behind them. But if you had to be the devil's advocate, as they say, and you had to, look at it from a different lens, like the pressure's on Jake Merklinger. And because of that, and because of the experience, because of the growth that we've seen him have, which we've talked about a ton in previous episodes, it could be his to lose. And so that's why I'm like, they're probably not going to be in a rush to name a day one starter, because I think a lot of people were eager to get behind Joey Aguilar to be the starter. And if there's no timetable that you have to have a starter named, by this date, they're going to wait until you have to release the starting lineup, the depth chart, right? Because of all the betting rules and everything that's changed. And I think Jake Merklinger has taken that and he has run with it. Maybe that allows him to get the nod against Syracuse, go with what right? Like, Jake should be that guy. He looks bigger. He looks stronger. He looks like he's been consistent. He looked really good in the last couple of clips we were able to get before they closed fall camp until the start of the season, and maybe until 2026 when the college football playoff comes around, and maybe they've made it and sneaked in just a little bit. But I want to go to Joey Aguilar now. This is his to gain. It's Jake Merklinger's to lose. It is Joey Aguilar's to gain. He took a gigantic leap going from App State to UCLA and has now taken an astronomical leap getting to Tennessee. In his mind, as it should be, he feels like he's won already, right? Like, you have Tennessee, you have a playoff contending team reaching out to you, thinking that you could be a valuable piece to their team. They liked the conversations you had. It took essentially one phone call, and they're like, okay, he's somebody that we want in this room. And he loves that Vol fans have embraced him before he's done anything. Him and his mom have loved being here at Tennessee so far, and they haven't had a single game snap yet. That is somebody you want in their room for culture, for leadership, for guidance. There are so many things that Joey Aguilar brings to this room beyond just, will he be the starter? He could be the starter, and you would think bringing in a veteran guy like that who has done nothing but compete his whole life, whether in high school, taking a couple of years off with COVID, then going to JUCO, earning the job there at App State, really trying to make something out of nothing, especially in that last year where they did lose a lot of talent. And he realizes he forced too much, so you had growth there. And now he realizes, the check down can be your friend. Maybe go to that a little bit more, but certainly give your receivers the best chance that they could get. You tried to learn something at UCLA, and now you're here at Tennessee. So I think for him, and I'll even get to the soundbite, like, in his mind, like, he's won a lot already. Like, you have those dreams that you're confident to vocalize, and then you have those dreams where maybe you don't vocalize them because they feel so outlandish. Maybe playing in the SEC was something that was always a goal, but maybe something you didn't feel necessarily confident in vocalizing, and now he's here, and he honestly couldn't even be happier just to be in the orange and white.
What motivates me is just, I wouldn't even say proving people wrong, I've been doubted my whole life. It's just for myself, for my family, just, seeing their kid on the highest stage playing the game that he loves. And just to go out there and know that no matter what happens, my family is proud of me. I got an education. I graduated already. So just definitely that.
I'm VFL Chris Brown. Experience the VW brand proudly being produced in the great state of Tennessee. Harper Volkswagen is a proud partner of Tennessee Athletics. Go Vols.
That's where you get into the conversation where it could be a Tua and a Jalen Hurts situation where maybe you start with Jake, but later in the season you need that veteran composure and experience, and that could be Joey Aguilar. Like, I think the race is closer between the two of them than people think, but in much different ways. Merklinger probably has the best grasp of the system, but Joey probably has like the stronger arm. So when you consider all of those things and you try to figure out what the blue curtain means, and maybe it means you're sad, and you think about the pick six, I'm going to say probably means nothing. Like, you want your defense to have some wins. It's just like when they have the blur gate. Like, you want your defense to like have some reps where they're winning. And if the offense is just beating up on the defense day in and day out, I think that can be an indictment too. So take it with a grain of salt. Just put it in your booklet of knowledge and just kind of compile it as it goes. But I think who should start is Joey Aguilar, who I think could make for maybe more interesting season could be Jake Merklinger. And George MacIntyre, let the guy develop, give him another year in the system, and I think Tennessee football could get back to, something that's really exciting. But they have so many more questions than just the quarterback competition. Of course, it, starts and stops with the quarterback, but I'm still 50-50. I know we'll learn so much more with the scrimmage later this week, and we'll be sure to ask very specific questions because Josh Heupel is probably the best media-trained coach here and what he will and will not tell you. So we'll be back Friday, I believe is when the scrimmage is. So make sure you turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on that conversation, and we'll have more content coming up on like that running back room. Kelsey Pope and the wide receivers are talking Thursday, so we'll have some content up on that as well. But I'll talk to you guys later this week, and let me know who you think should be the starting quarterback.